Assalamu alaikum. We have a very special segment for you today on Muslim Network TV. I'm your host, Aylia Batool. This past weekend, the community was shocked and saddened by the news coming out of an Ajax library, where there was an attempt to set a Muslim woman's hijab on fire. Luckily, the victim is unharmed and the suspect, Kelly Ann Frere, is in custody. Though we are still horrified that these blatant acts of hate can still occur in the first place. Today, we are joined by Tabassum Wayne, the Executive Director of the Muslim Advisory Council of Canada. Tabassum, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Alia, for having me here today.
Looking at the horrifying incident that happened in Ajax over the weekend, how does this event reflect the broader issue of Islamophobia in Canada? What do you think is the main driver of Islamophobia in Canada?
That's a great question. As an organization that advocates against Islamophobia using evidence-based research, our data shows us that it's a multi-pronged approach. Social media has become a large factor in the spread of anti-Muslim hate, or Islamophobia, as you've called it. But we also have data showing that politicians spreading Islamophobia and anti-Muslim hate using their social media has been a big proponent. Data also indicates that it's usually high school white children that are perpetuating Islamophobia. So it starts at a very young age. And we're seeing this carried forward. And we saw that in the London, Ontario attack where the Azal family was murdered. In regards to this incident, this individual was actually out on bail. She had previously used a machete to attack some individuals, and she was out on bail and she committed this crime. And it's absolutely horrific. And we expect all of our political leaders to speak up.
And how is the Muslim community in Ajax feeling following this incident? And what support measures have been taken to assist the victim?
Yeah, so it's not just the community in Ajax that's feeling it. This is being felt around Canada. Muslims in Canada are feeling terrified, especially if they're Muslim women who wear the hijab. I've had calls from community members all around Canada calling me, asking me, will they be safe going out? Or should they be afraid for their daughters who wear their hijab? Are they going to be safe at school? So, it's really, once an incident like this happens, it has a national effect on our community. And it's not just the women, it's the men in our community too who are feeling it. They're thinking, are our mothers going to be safe going out? Are our wives going to be safe? Are our daughters going to be safe? And this is not how Canadian Muslims should be feeling. And this is really indicative of the policies that we have in Canada. Are they inclusive to the Canadian Muslim community? Are the foreign policies that we're seeing in Canada, are they perpetuating Islamophobia, or are they being inclusive to Canadian Muslims? And my opinion is that they are perpetuating Islamophobia.
Now, obviously, Islamophobia is a broader topic, but if we want to get more specific, we can also talk about gendered Islamophobia, because I feel there is a specific type of discrimination that only affects visible hijabi women. And I want to know your thoughts on how different forms of discrimination intersect when it comes to Muslim women in particular.
This is a great question. So in regards to gendered Islamophobia, the stats show us that Muslim women who wear the hijab and are visibly Muslim, they are actually targeted the most in Canada. And we saw this in the London, Ontario attack. We saw this in the recent Ajax incident. In terms of the intersectionality of it, Black Muslim women who wear the hijab are usually targeted the most. And there's different intersections as well. The darker your skin tone, the more likely you are to be discriminated against. And that's racism, that's Islamophobia, that's anti-Black racism, that's anti-Palestinian racism. So we can talk about all of these types of racism, but the root of the cause is, I think there's actually quite a few roots of the cause, and those are intersectional as well. The systems in place are there policies inclusive to the Muslim community? Do they account for Islamophobia? Do they account for anti-Palestinian racism? Do they account for anti-Arab racism? And we particularly do work in the healthcare, education, gender-based violence, and public safety sectors, and we see that these systems of power need major improvement, and we're working every day to dismantle Islamophobia within these systems. But it's going to take a whole community-wide effort to ensure that our community is safe and the policies are inclusive in Canada.
Can you tell us what the Muslim Advisory Council of Canada is doing to combat Islamophobia?
Yeah, so the Muslim Advisory Council of Canada is working in different sectors to, conduct evidence-based research to move policy along in Canada. And we work in the healthcare, education, gender-based violence, and public safety sectors. So particularly in healthcare, we're seeing that healthcare workers are being suppressed, they're being silenced, and they're actually being suspended or losing their jobs for speaking up for human rights in Palestine. And of course, anti-Palestinian racism is different from Islamophobia, but there are intersectionalities. So it's important that we speak up for this. And we're advocating to the highest levels of government to tell them about what's going on and to ensure that there's accountability. So just in June, I met with the Federal Minister of Health and we had a discussion surrounding this topic. With the change in government possibly coming, there's going to be a lot more work to be done to keep advocating, to keep raising awareness of the issues that our community is going through, and we're that voice at the table. Because if you're not at the table, you're actually on the menu, and Muslim Advisory ensures that the Muslim community is always at the table and our priorities are elevated at each level of government. In regards to education, we're seeing that students are being silenced, suspended, or suppressed from speaking up against Palestine. But also, Muslim girls in high school, they are still, to this day, 9/11 was 20 years ago. To this day, Muslim girls wearing the hijab are being asked by their classmates, do you have a bomb under your hijab? And when they bring this up to administration, it's being brushed off. There's no accountability. And it's absolutely horrific that our daughters have to go through this in the public education system in Ontario and in Canada. In regards to public safety, we are seeing that, people protesting for human rights are being suppressed. They're being, jailed. They're being targeted by police for speaking up about human rights. And this is absolutely deplorable. And of course, it's all related to Islamophobia. That's basically what I can say is that we are working day in and day out to dismantle Islamophobia in Canada through evidence-based research.
That's wonderful. And thank you for the work that you do. My final question is, what specific actions would you like to see from a local or provincial governments to address and reduce Islamophobic crimes?
That's a really great question. From a local perspective, in terms of the protests happening, I would say I would like our community to be aware that there's a lot of regional municipalities that are trying to implement the bubble bylaw, which is they're trying to stop protesters, which is, protected under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. They're trying to pass a bubble bylaw. So we want to ensure that community is aware of this. So they go out to town meetings, city council meetings, and they speak up and they raise their voices. It's not okay that locally our voices they're trying to suppress our community's voices, and it's absolutely not okay. So we need to ensure that everybody is speaking up, emailing their local officials, emailing their MPPs to say Islamophobia is on the rise. What is your government going to do about this? And I can guide them on what to say. They should be implementing anti-Muslim policies to protect our communities, both in healthcare, in education, in public safety, in the gender-based violence sector. They should be mandated to take training about anti-Islamophobia, but not just that. Their policies have to list out Islamophobia, anti-Palestinian racism, because if we don't name it, it's never going to get resolved.
Thank you once again, Sr Tabassum, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me today.
And thank you for joining us today at Muslim Network TV. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching.